Namaste, Mabuhay. Welcome back to Soul Yatra. So today I'm here with a very interesting topic which is very close to my heart. It's called astrology. Normally when you say astrology, it gives very different impressions and different reactions. But I'm going to share today about astrology, what not often you would have heard about it. There were certain events in my life many years ago which had too many questions for me. I wasn't getting answers. I really wanted to know why it happened. Did I really deserve this? And that's where the quest started. It ultimately led me to have a good understanding of a very, very profound science, which already is not existent with its depth as it was some centuries ago. Because astrology is a science which is not just one subject. Astrology encompasses all fields of science, or rather everything about what we live altogether. And that's what I learned, and I slowly tried to uncover what were some of the logics and rationale behind that. I'm going to make a series of this. So today I'll just do an introduction of the first part, which is called a chart. The moment you talk about astrology, there will always be a birth chart, whether it is Western astrology or it is Vedic or Indian astrology. So what is a birth chart? To start with that, what does it show? The chart shows the placement of sun, moon, planets, right? So first step before that is, what role does sun, earth and moon play in our lives? In astrology, Vedic astrology, sun represents our soul, the Atma. Moon represents our mind, and earth is us. Our material body is made out of this mother earth. It will go back there the moment we die. And then the other planets around us, there is an inference we make out of that. So coming back to the chart, you might be wondering why this is here. So this is a solar system, and a solar system like this is the sun, and these are the planets around that. So if you had to visualize, a solar system is like a disk, like a plate, suspended in the Milky Way, because we are in the galaxy Milky Way, where we have stars all around the solar system. So it's above, it's here, right? Now what astrology does is it says, sun has a magnetic influence, outermost planet is Pluto until then. Now, if we had to visualize a radius outside the solar system with a cluster of stars, and think about that these are the stars which seem to have an influence on our planet. So like a circle around the solar system, and there would be a cluster of stars. They have the ability to influence our planets. There are stars everywhere, but these are the ones which have an influence. That's the zodiac belt. Now a circle is 360 degrees. If we divide it by 30, we get 12 zodiac signs. Now, how does zodiac signs come in? The basis of that is that every 30 degrees, the stars seem to be grouped in a manner where they seem to have similar properties. So Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, that's how it is. Now the solar system is also, it's not straight like this. It has an elliptic path. It's not as easy as it looks like, but that's how it is. Now, typically when we have to make someone's birth chart, we ask the time, the place, apart from the date and the year. Earth is suspended 23.5 degrees. The moment we get the time and the place, we actually get the latitude and longitude of that place, and we pause Earth for that moment. Why? Because the object of analysis is me or you, and we are Mother Earth. So we pause Earth. So the moment we pause Earth, it looks like the zodiac belt and the sun and everything is circling around Earth. So for that moment, it becomes a geocentric model versus a heliocentric. And a picture is taken of that moment. That is our birth chart. If you went to NASA, the NASA ephemeris would show exactly the same relative position of the planets. It's a relative position of the planets, and of course the zodiac belt surrounding that. Now Earth's axis, it doesn't really spin. It kind of wobbles like this. So this axis wobbles and circles the zodiac belt in 24 hours. So it points towards one zodiac every 2.5 hours. So in a birth chart, when we were born, wherever that axis was pointing, that would become my rising ascendant in the birth chart. And again, I know you don't have to really do details into it, but what I'm trying to share is that there is a logic of why the birth chart is like that. There's a proper mathematical calculation done. It needs physics, it needs everything. It's all the math sciences to calculate it. And wherever the moon was under the influence of whichever zodiac. So for example, this fell under Libra at 10 degrees. So we'll say Saturn was in Libra in 10 degrees. So you paused it and we got the picture. So wherever moon in whichever zodiac sign it is captured, that becomes our birth sign. That is by Vedic Indian astrology. Wherever sun is, that becomes your solar zodiac sign. Sun sign, what you call rather. And then the other planet. Why is moon important? Why we capture moon? There's a law of karma which is associated with astrology. There'll be a separate episode for that. But just to let you know that it is the moon, it is our mind which comes back with all the coding, subconscious memory of our past human lives. And that's going to continue. So that's why that is important, because our karmic coding, decoding comes out of that. Sun is the soul. So sun basically, it wants to go back to the creator. It doesn't really want to live in this mortal life, but it is trapped in this human body. And you have generally seen the moon, the mind always supersedes your conscience, your soul, right? There are times your soul, your heart is telling you that no, this is not right. Or say, let's give you a very trivial example in today's modern world. We know we have to get up early in the morning, but we keep watching movie on our phone because it's the mind which wants to do it. You don't listen to your soul. That's why the mind plays an important role in our life. And of course, then the position of the sun also decides a lot in our lives. How much do we abide by the soul? How much do we listen? Etc. I'll make a series, so we'll get into details of a lot of interesting things. Now, so that's your birth chart. So ideally, the birth chart should be circle. But in Indian astrology, we make it square just for convenience. But if you have to technically decode, it is actually a circle. Basically, it is Aries, Taurus, Gemini. It is a zodiac belt and then the planets based on that. So that's the first step. That's your birth chart. I hope this was helpful. Now, second part. What do we get out of it? The position of the planet is just it's a sign. I mean, if you look at it, NASA will say that's what it is like, right? But it is the art of inferring that. Art of inferring the meaning out of that is what is astrology. So for example, the position of the planets tell us a lot about our lives. Saturn has certain character of its own, which we interpret in different analogies in our lives. So for example, Saturn can be interpreted as the air in our body, the Vata. Saturn is interpreted as our karmic, logbook. So Saturn controls all our actions day to day. That's why it becomes important. Saturn is interpreted as old people, as people who work on the ground, labor class. So each planet has been given different inferences to apply in our lives. Similarly, the 12 houses, the first house is me, I, who am I? It's interesting. Wherever the moon is will tell me how my mind functions. But my physical appearance and body comes from my ascendant, the first house. Then the second house is about my speech. The second house is about my family, immediate family. The second house is about my communication, throat. So that one house can be applied in every sphere of our life. So that's how these 12 houses encompass everything all about in our lives. For example, Mercury. So Mercury is related to our nervous system. So in the solar system, Mercury is very close to the sun, and it is said that most of the radiation or the rays coming out of sun, it passes through Mercury and then comes to us. And Mercury it is rich in certain chemicals like magnesium, phosphorus, which are important for running our nervous system. Again, we can get into details. I'll make small pieces where we'll talk about each of this. But each planet has certain properties by its composition, which can actually be related and applied to our body, our behavior, our lives. So for example, if Saturn is in bad dignity in your chart, we say our tenacity and our resilience is low. You know why? Because Saturn is your air, what we breathe in. What is the nature of air? It doesn't stay still. So it has to be channelized in the right manner. Now imagine if air in your body, the Vata flow, the yin and the yang, or our Nadi system, if the air is not flowing the way it is supposed to be, our brain is going to react like that. What is our brain? Our brain is all about breathing and the brain waves, what is formed, right? So that's how we decipher, we decode characteristics, our body, physical body, of our mental body, of our nature, of our characteristics, of our relationships, everything through this. So isn't it interesting that you've got 12 houses, you've got 7 planets, because Pluto and Neptune, because they move for so many years, while we look at it, but we don't look at it in our mundane astrology so much in our day-to-day lives. So they're primarily 7. And then you've got Rahu and Ketu, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, which are energy bodies. They are not planets. They play such an important roles in our lives and how we can decode a lot out of it. Now I want to again repeat what I said in the beginning, that I think this knowledge is not today with us as it should have been. It's lost. We don't have those people, rishis or those sages who were experts in this. And in the last many years of my own practice, what I have realized, that to be a good astrologer, one has to be an elevated soul. When I say elevated soul, you have to be practicing meditation. You have to be practicing certain ways of living in your life, not just by physical action, but by our mental actions, by our thoughts, by the way we are, which can help us become a good astrologer, or rather someone who can decode much more than what a normal mortal individual can do. If we practiced more meditation, if we practice more spirituality. When I say spirituality, what is spirituality? Being more forgiving, having more gratitude, living our life in a broader way, where our mental capability is much more than what we practice in our day-to-day life. In short, I would say the more humanity we follow, I would look at it this way, that to be a good astrologer, or to be able to have these predictive capabilities, of course, part of it has to come in our DNA, in our sanskaras. But apart from that, how we practice our life in our day-to-day life in a manner where we could practice more forgiveness, more gratitude, compassion, more sensitivity. And of course, there's nothing like honesty and purity of the soul. So when I say spirituality, basically it means living a life where you don't hurt anyone, where you do not make perceptions about people. We look at everybody with compassion, and we practice. From that, we practice meditation, we practice, some level of spirituality. When I say spirituality, connecting with the higher self. If we can do that, then I've seen that the ability to predict and understand or decode becomes easier. In my, I would say, small little way, I have to be very humble that I'm not an astrologer, or I haven't learned it. But in whatever little practices I tried, learning it and applying it in my life, I realized that it only got better when I began some practices, both in terms of my day-to-day life, in how I deal with people, and of course with my practices of pranayama and yoga and meditation, did help me understand this, the different lens. And I keep having these eureka moments, because it takes me to another level of thinking, and it has helped me stop making perceptions about people and making our own decisions that he is right or she is right, or who's wrong and who's right. It is important that how I practice that in my life, the righteousness, the value system, what I'm supposed to. Astrology has been a very big guide for me. I always say this to all my friends, considering the small level of knowledge what we have today in today's world, it's like a guide. Maybe we can decode 50-60% out of that chart, but even that is good enough for us to be guided in our day-to-day life. I always say it teaches us to swim with the tide and not fight the current. I hope you found it interesting. And as I said, since this is very, very close to my heart, this subject, I'm going to make many more episodes out of this subject. And since this is very close to my heart, I do want to share, my journey along with this, and how I learned few things, and how I tried to make it logical and rational. So look out for episodes coming on this subject, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Thank you once again. Please like, subscribe, and share.